My sister-in-law tried to take my house, saying, "You don't deserve all this luxury." "You don't need all this luxury, Lauren. Be honest, you're completely out of place here." Vanessa's words hung in the air like poison, her smile not matching the coldness in her eyes. We were in the living room of my house, the home my husband Michael and I had bought with the fruits of our hard work, restored with love for months, and planned to turn into the family home we were about to start building together. Confused guests looked on. The surprise baby shower Vanessa had organized without my permission had just taken a shocking turn. Next to me, a man in a suit she had introduced as the best real estate agent in town looked visibly uncomfortable, as did the interior designer who already had wonderful ideas for the new family home. "Excuse me?" I replied, my voice steadier. Then I felt inside, my hands instinctively resting protectively on my 6-week pregnant belly. "Let's be real," Vanessa continued, now speaking to the small crowd as if I were just another bystander. "Michael is too kind to say it, but the family always expected him to marry someone who truly understands the lifestyle he can offer. This place." She gestured toward the restored arches and original stained glass windows I had spent months researching, needs someone who appreciates its historic value. It was in that moment I realized my sister-in-law wasn't just jealous of our house. She literally wanted to take it from us. The realization hit me like lightning, connecting all the innocent comments, the uninvited visits, the constant suggestions that we should consider something more modest. What Vanessa didn't know was that her little public performance had just sealed her fate. She had no idea what was coming. But to understand how we got to this surreal point, I need to go back to the beginning. I met Michael at an unexpected moment in my life. I had just won a design award for a sustainability campaign and was presenting my portfolio at a conference in Chicago. While most attendees were focused on budgets and deadlines, I noticed a man in the third row who seemed genuinely fascinated by the creative concept. "The way you harmonized functionality with environmental awareness is extraordinary," he commented. After my presentation, his sharp eyes fixed on the panels I had created. Most designers just slap a layer of green on top without actually transforming the core thinking. That man was Michael Mitchell, not a potential client, but an educational, technology entrepreneur who had attended the event out of genuine interest in innovative design. Our post-conference coffee turned into hours of conversation, covering everything from sustainable architecture to classic literature. The connection was instant and deep. I had grown up in a middle-class family in a small town, my father a mechanic, my mother an elementary school teacher. Values like hard work, honesty, and living within our means were instilled in me from a young age. Michael, though from a more privileged background, shared these same core values. His company had started in a college dorm room and grown through sheer hard work and clear vision. Our wedding, 2 years later, was exactly as we wanted: intimate, meaningful, and free of unnecessary extravagance, even though Michael could have easily afforded an opulent celebration. We chose to invest in experiences instead of showing off, traveling for a few weeks along the West Coast on a road trip we planned together. It was during that trip that I met the full Mitchell family. Clara, Michael's widowed mother, seemed genuinely warm, though a bit reserved. Clearly a woman accustomed to high social circles, but kind by nature. Ryan, Michael's younger brother, came across as a less confident version of my husband, always seeking approval, especially from his wife. And then there was Vanessa. From our very first meeting, something about her unsettled me. Her smiles never reached her eyes. Her questions about my career always came laced with subtle jabs that undermined my achievements. Freelance design must be so flexible, perfect, for when you have kids and want to just work part-time. Michael later explained that Vanessa came from a financially struggling family and had married Ryan when he was still the promising younger brother of Michael Mitchell. She had expected a rapid rise in social status that didn't happen as fast as she hoped. "She just needs time to feel secure in the family," Michael always said, choosing to see the best in people. At first, I accepted that explanation. Growing up with limited resources, I understood how financial insecurity could shape behavior. I made efforts to build a friendly relationship with Vanessa, inviting her out to lunch, including her in decisions whenever possible. In the first years of our marriage, Michael and I lived comfortably but without excess. We stayed in his apartment in the city, I maintained my independent design studio, and we both kept building our careers. Vanessa and Ryan always seemed to be struggling financially, despite the consulting business Ryan was trying to establish with occasional help from Michael. At every family gathering, it became increasingly obvious that Vanessa was constantly measuring her status against ours. The mere mention of a new account I had secured or a promising project Michael was working on was enough to make her tense, quickly steering the conversation towards some recent material acquisition or social connection they had established. Ryan was just invited to join the Lakeside Golf Club, she would casually mention, although we would later find out they could barely afford the membership fees. We're thinking about remodeling the entire kitchen with Italian marble, she'd announce, even though Ryan seemed to be hearing the news for the first time right along with us. None of this seemed particularly alarming, just the behavior of someone insecure, trying to keep up appearances. I had no idea that this pattern was only beginning, or how dramatically it would escalate once our financial situation changed. And change, it definitely did. The transformation in our lives happened almost overnight. Michael's educational technology company, which had developed an innovative personalized learning system, caught the attention of one of the largest corporations in the industry. After weeks of intense negotiations and sleepless nights reviewing contracts, Michael sold his creation for an amount that left us speechless when the final figure was revealed. What do we do now? I asked as reality finally set in, the champagne from our celebration still bubbling in our glasses. We live the life we've always dreamed of, Michael answered, that spark of endless possibilities shining in his eyes. Starting with the house we've always wanted. The search for the perfect house took us through dozens of properties, none of them feeling quite right, until the realtor mentioned a Victorian mansion that had just come on the market. Situated on a large plot in one of the best suburbs, the Aimwik historic 1890 property had been owned by the same family for generations. It needed significant updates, but its core structure was solid: handmade brick walls, stunning stained glass windows, woodwork details you simply don't find in modern architecture. The moment we stepped through the front door, we felt that unexplainable connection. It wasn't just a beautiful house. It was a place with soul, with stories embedded in its walls. As we walked through the spacious rooms, we could already picture our life there. An office for my design projects, a library for Michael's rare book collection, expansive gardens where our future children could play. "This is our home," I whispered, squeezing his hand. "Yes," he simply replied. "It is." Restoring it became a labor of love. We hired experts in historical preservation, but stayed deeply involved in every decision. We updated the infrastructure, plumbing, electricity, insulation, but meticulously preserved the original architectural elements. Stained glass restorers spent weeks recreating damaged panels. Skilled craftsmen repaired the intricate woodwork. Even the kitchen tiles were researched to ensure they matched the historical period of the house. It was during this renovation that I found out I was pregnant. The news added even more meaning to our project. We weren't just restoring a historic property. We were creating a home where a new generation would grow up, where family traditions would be born. When we finally moved in, the house had been transformed. It was both a preserved piece of history and a fully functional space for a modern family. Every detail reflected not only a deep respect for the past, but also our own contemporary sensibilities. Naturally, we wanted to share our joy with the family. We organized a dinner to celebrate our move and to officially announce the pregnancy, which we had kept secret until the first trimester was over. Clara arrived first, bringing a plant as a housewarming gift and genuine tears of happiness upon learning she would be a grandmother. Vanessa and Ryan arrived 40 minutes late. As Vanessa walked through the door, her face cycled through a nearly comical range of emotions. Initial shock, followed by calculating analysis, and ending with a smile so forced it looked painful. "All this for just 2 people?" was her first comment as she walked through the entrance hall, fingers gliding over the restored staircase railing. Seems like a waste of space. Throughout the evening, I watched as Vanessa mentally cataloged every detail of the house. She visually measured the rooms, inspected the finishes, and discreetly opened cabinets when she thought no one was watching. Her behavior was less like that of a guest and more like that of an appraiser. When we announced the pregnancy during dessert, Clara erupted with genuine joy. Ryan offered heartfelt congratulations. Vanessa, however, just smiled that signature smile of hers that never quite reached her eyes. "How convenient," she remarked. The big house and the baby coming. At the same time, almost like it was planned to secure your status. An uncomfortable silence followed her comment. Michael quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. The comment hung over us for the rest of the evening. In the following weeks, Vanessa started showing up unannounced. "I was in the neighborhood," became her standard excuse, even though they lived more than 30 minutes away. Each visit included some veiled criticism about the house being excessive or extravagant. "How brave to choose such expressive colors," she remarked about the historic shades of blue we had extensively researched for the living room. "Most people would prefer something more sophisticated." Or, "That staircase looks so dangerous for kids. I suppose you'll have to make some drastic changes when the baby comes." At first, her comments were just annoying, but over time, they became deeply unsettling, especially when I realized Vanessa had started talking to others about our house, as if it were a property she felt partially responsible for. "We're helping Michael and Lauren decide on the gardens," she announced to a couple visiting us, even though we had never asked for her opinion on landscaping. "The decision about the baby's room is still up in the air," she told Clara during a family lunch, even though Michael and I had already chosen and started decorating the nursery. Then came the surprise baby shower that Vanessa organized without my knowledge or consent, completely ignoring the fact that we hadn't yet made our pregnancy public. It was there, surrounded by people I barely knew, with a real estate agent and an interior designer inexplicably invited, that I finally understood what was happening. "You don't need all this luxury, Lauren," Vanessa said when I confronted her privately about her motives. "You're completely out of place here." Those words were only the beginning of a battle I never imagined I would have to fight, a battle for my own home. After that confrontation during the baby shower, I decided to keep my distance from Vanessa. Her intention to destabilize me was clear, though her motives still seemed murky. Michael, always reluctant to believe the worst in people, especially family, tried to downplay what had happened. "Vanessa has always had a weird sense of humor," he argued. "I'm sure she didn't mean it literally." I wanted to believe that too, but my instincts screamed otherwise. As a designer, noticing details and patterns is part of my daily work, and Vanessa's behavior showed a clear and undeniable pattern. Limited our interactions to unavoidable family events, but even on those occasions, Vanessa found ways to continue her campaign. During a dinner at Clara's house, while everyone was chatting in the living room, I found Vanessa in the study, messing with her mother-in-law's laptop. "Oh, just showing Clara some real estate websites," she explained with false innocence. "She's worried you two are overwhelmed with that huge house." When I got closer, I could clearly see on the screen an article about many signs of emotional instability during pregnancy, and another about when to intervene if a family member is making reckless financial decisions. The attack had now shifted tactics, from suggesting I was unfit for the house to insinuating I was mentally unstable to make decisions. It was frighteningly calculated. My best friend Zoe, the CEO of a marketing agency and a fierce advocate for truth, became my main confidant during this period. "I don't think this is just about jealousy," Zoe reflected after hearing about the latest incidents. "There's something more specific going on. Vanessa doesn't just want a house like yours, she wants your exact house." That observation made something click in my mind. I decided to investigate more deeply into Vanessa's obsessive interest in our property. With the help of Thomas Wright, the Mitchell family's attorney for decades, I began digging through public records related to the house. What we discovered left me stunned. Ryan and Vanessa had made an offer on the same property just 3 months before us, but were rejected due to their inability to secure proper financing. The house of my dreams had once been Vanessa's dream home, dreams that were crushed by financial limitations. Digging deeper, we discovered that the couple was drowning in debt. The lifestyle they maintained, luxury cars, designer clothes, extravagant vacations, was supported by maxed-out credit cards and personal loans with alarming interest rates. Ryan was nowhere near the level of financial success Vanessa liked to portray during family gatherings. The most disturbing part, we found in public records from a local design magazine that Vanessa had entered a design contest 2 years earlier, submitting detailed plans for the renovation of a historic Victorian mansion, plans that were shockingly similar to our property, complete with designated bedrooms for children they hadn't even started planning for. Armed with this information, I confronted Michael. He initially resisted the implications, arguing that coincidences happen. But when I showed him the detailed drawings Vanessa had created for our house years before we bought it, he finally recognized the gravity of the situation. "This is disturbing," he admitted, studying the plans with a grim expression. "But what exactly do you think she's trying to do?" Before I could properly answer that question, Vanessa's campaign escalated dramatically. Clara called me one morning, her voice shaking with concern. "Lauren, dear, we need to talk about something sensitive. Vanessa showed me some troubling emails that you supposedly sent about selling the house. Emails I had never written. I met with Clara in person that afternoon, showing her my actual email history and explaining the situation. Though initially skeptical, Clara was at her core a fair person. The evidence was too clear to ignore. "I always thought it was strange how she talked about your house," Clara admitted, as if somehow it was hers. The final confirmation of Vanessa's intentions came unexpectedly. Returning from a prenatal appointment, I found an unfamiliar car in our driveway. Entering quietly through the side door, I heard voices coming from the main hall. "Perfect for a grand piano right here," Vanessa was saying to a man in a suit who was taking notes. "If we take down this wall, we can open up the whole space for entertaining. The Mitchells have always been known for throwing the best parties, and when we're hosting here." I froze, barely believing what I was hearing. Vanessa was literally planning renovations in my house as if she already owned it. "Excuse me," I interrupted, making them both turn around, startled. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. We're not planning any renovations or hiring consultants." The man looked confused. "But Mrs. Mitchell here said you were considering selling and wanted a preliminary evaluation of the property's potential." "I'm Lauren Mitchell, the owner of this house along with my husband Michael," I clarified, watching Vanessa's face turn pale. "And I can assure you, we have absolutely no intention of selling." After the bewildered appraiser left, I confronted Vanessa directly. "Why are you doing this? What do you possibly expect to accomplish?" For a brief moment, the mask dropped completely. "This house should have been mine," she hissed, dropping all pretense. "Ryan and I saw it first. We had plans. Then you show up with your new money and snatch it like it's just another trophy. You don't even appreciate what you have here." It was a shocking confession in its raw honesty. The house wasn't just an object of envy for Vanessa. It was the symbol of everything she wanted and couldn't have, a dream she saw as stolen by people who, in her twisted mind, didn't deserve it. "This is our home," I replied firmly. "It's not for sale. It never will be. It's time for you to accept that." Her laugh was cold. "We'll see. Pregnancy is such an emotionally fragile time. Who knows what impulsive decisions a first-time mother might make?" The implicit threat was clear. This was no longer just about petty manipulations. Vanessa was prepared to escalate the situation at any cost, and I had to be ready to defend my family and my home. The discovery of Vanessa giving a tour of our house to an appraiser was the catalyst that finally opened Michael's eyes completely. That night, for the first time since I began voicing concerns, he was genuinely alarmed. "This has crossed any reasonable line," he declared, pacing the office like a caged lion. "We need to do something decisive." Coming up with an action plan wasn't difficult. Michael and I had always worked well together, complementing each other's strengths. First, We implemented immediate practical measures. We changed the locks, installed a discreet but effective security system, and instructed our staff to never allow anyone inside when we weren't home, regardless of family ties. Thomas Wright, the family attorney, became our crucial ally. After reviewing the situation, he proposed a legal solution to protect our property, creating an irrevocable family trust that would ensure the house remained within the direct lineage of our descendants. This will establish definitive legal protection, Thomas explained in his old-fashioned office. Once formalized, even if something happens to either of you, the property will be shielded from external claims. The situation with Ryan Pfizer was particularly delicate. As Michael's brother, he was naturally part of the family we wanted to preserve in our lives. But was it possible to keep him close while setting firm boundaries with Vanessa? The answer came unexpectedly. On a rainy afternoon, Ryan showed up at our door alone, looking exhausted and nervous. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I need to talk to you about Vanessa." In the library, with the crackling fireplace as the only sound besides our voices, Ryan finally broke down. He told us how Vanessa had become obsessed with the house ever since they first saw it years ago. How their financial problems were much worse than anyone realized. How she constantly pressured him to meet a match. Michael's success, pushing them deeper into debt to keep up appearances. She had elaborate plans for this house, he explained, showing us a notebook filled with sketches he had found. Every detail mapped out, even the names of the children we would have in each room. The most alarming part, Vanessa had recently consulted a lawyer to explore ways to challenge our ownership of the house, convinced she could find some technicality to force a sale. "She thinks you should sell because you don't deserve to live here," Ryan continued, shame written all over his face. "She believes that if Clara knew the truth, she would step in to protect the family's assets." "What truth?" I asked, confused. Ryan hesitated. "Vanessa is spreading rumors that you're mentally unstable because of the pregnancy, that you two are having serious marital problems, that Michael is reconsidering the marriage." The extent of the smear campaign shocked me. This wasn't just opportunistic manipulation, it was a calculated strategy to discredit me and potentially drive a wedge between Michael and me. "Did you know about this the whole time?" Michael asked his brother, his voice trembling with restrained anger. "Not the full extent." Ryan defended himself weakly. "She always presented every idea as a concern or a way to help. Whenever I questioned her, she would get extremely defensive, accusing me of not supporting her. It was the classic account of someone manipulated by a controlling partner, and although I was frustrated with his weakness, I also felt compassion for Ryan. "What made you finally realize you needed to talk to us?" I asked gently. He pulled out a document from the folder he had brought. It was a partially completed power of attorney that would give Vanessa and Ryan legal authority to make decisions on Clara's behalf. "She wants Clara to sign this, claiming it's just a health precaution, but the terms." He pointed to a specific paragraph. "It would give us authority to reassess family assets, including gifts and early inheritances that Clara may have given." It was a shocking tactic, using Clara as a pawn to gain some kind of control over our property. "This is going way too far," Ryan concluded, looking genuinely disturbed. "I love Vanessa, but this is sick." As Ryan spoke, the doorbell rang. Michael went to answer and returned moments later with Clara, who had arrived for our weekly meeting to plan the nursery. Her confused expression upon seeing Ryan made it clear this was not a coordinated visit. "Ryan, what are you doing here? Vanessa said you had an important client meeting today." Ryan's eyes revealed both guilt and determination as he faced a crucial decision. After a painful moment of hesitation, he held out the power of attorney document to his mother. "Mom, we need to talk about something serious, about Vanessa, this house, and some lies that have been told." The next 2 hours were intense and emotionally draining for everyone. Clara, initially in disbelief, became progressively horrified as she saw concrete evidence of Vanessa's manipulations, from forged emails in my name to the detailed plans for the house, and most disturbingly, the power of attorney she intended for Clara to sign. "How could I not see this?" Clara whispered, looking fragile as she absorbed everything. "I always thought her interest in this house was a bit intense." Skilled manipulators are masters at appearing reasonable. I comforted her. "We've all been fooled at some point." As we discussed next steps, the front door opened. Vanessa walked into the hallway, her voice filled with irritation as she called out for Ryan. "Ryan? I've been looking for you for hours. Why aren't you answering your phone? We have that dinner with—" She stopped abruptly upon seeing all of us gathered in the library, the power of attorney document open on the table. Her eyes moved from the paper to Ryan's guilty face, and she instantly understood what was happening. What followed was an explosion that fully exposed her true nature. Any pretense of sophistication or decorum vanished as she yelled accusations, swinging between attacking me and Michael as social climbers who stole what should have been ours, and turning on Ryan for betraying his own wife. "You don't understand how families like the Mitchells work," she shouted at me. "There are traditions, expectations. This house belongs to someone who truly understands its meaning, not some freelance designer from a common background." It was Clara who finally interrupted the attack, rising with surprising dignity considering her small stature. "Enough, Vanessa," Clara declared, her voice calm but unwavering. "This house belongs to Michael and Lauren. They bought it legally, restored it beautifully, and are about to raise my grandchild here. Your behavior is unacceptable and does not represent the Mitchell values in any way." Something in Clara's quiet authority pierced through Vanessa's bubble of indignation. She physically took a step back, glancing around as if searching for an ally, only to find unified expressions of disapproval. "Ryan," she finally said, her voice suddenly controlled. "Let's go, now." Ryan remained seated. "No, Vanessa, not this time. We need to face this." It was a defining moment. The first time Ryan openly stood up to his wife. Vanessa's face showed genuine shock before hardening into a cold mask. "Fine," she replied, grabbing her purse, "if that's how it's going to be." As the door closed behind her, a heavy silence fell over us. No one quite knew what to say after witnessing such a collapse. Finally, Ryan spoke, his voice thick with restrained emotion. "I'm sorry, for everything. I should have seen this. Should have said something sooner." Michael placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "What matters is that you're speaking up now." Clara, still visibly shaken, walked over to me. "Lauren, sweetheart, I owe you an apology too. I should have trusted you more, questioned the stories I was hearing." I hugged my mother-in-law, feeling the weight of the past weeks start to lift. "You're here now. That's what matters." As I watched my family come together, I felt the baby move inside me, a gentle reminder of the future we were protecting. This wasn't just a fight over a physical house, but about the kind of family environment we wanted to create for the next generation of Mitchells. There was still a lot to resolve, especially for Ryan, whose marriage now stood at a critical crossroads. But for the first time in months, I felt like we had turned an important page. The truth was out, the manipulations exposed, the boundaries set. What none of us could have predicted was that Vanessa still had one last card to play, one that would test the limits of our compassion and resolve. 3 days after the confrontation, just as we thought things were starting to calm down, Ryan received the first of many desperate phone calls from Vanessa. Apparently, she had reflected on her behavior and wanted to make amends with everyone. "She says she understands what she did wrong," Ryan explained hesitantly over breakfast in our kitchen. He had been sleeping in the guest room since the outburst, unable to face the empty apartment where Vanessa was likely waiting for him. "She's asking for a chance to explain herself." Michael and I exchanged skeptical glances. Clara, who had been spending more time at our house helping with baby preparations, voiced what we were all thinking. "People rarely change overnight, Ryan, especially after such major revelations." The phone calls continued over the next few days, evolving from apologies to concrete proposals for reconciliation. Couples therapy, financial counseling, new boundaries. Vanessa was using all the right words to suggest genuine remorse. Ryan, clearly torn, finally agreed to meet her on neutral ground, a cafe downtown. He returned from that meeting looking both relieved and puzzled. "She really does seem different," he said, sitting with us on the porch as the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard. She admitted she had become unhealthily obsessed with the house, said she spent a lot of time reflecting on why she reacted so strongly. "And what was her conclusion?" I asked, unable to fully hide my skepticism. Ryan hesitated. "She says the house represented everything she always wanted to give her family: stability, beauty, tradition. That seeing it in the hands of, well, in the hands of someone like me," I finished for him, remembering her hurtful words during the baby shower. "She didn't put it that way this time," Ryan quickly added. "She said she projects her own insecurities onto you because you seem so comfortable with who you are, while she's always felt like she had to prove her worth." It was a convenient explanation, almost too psychologically perfect. Michael, always more willing to see the good in people, suggested that maybe we should give Vanessa a limited chance to show genuine change. People make mistakes, some really serious ones, but they can also grow from them. Clara and I remained reserved, though for different reasons. Clara was mostly worried about Ryan, fearing he would go back into a potentially abusive relationship. I was concerned about the safety of my family and home, suspecting that any apparent change would just be a new tactic. The confirmation of my suspicions came 2 weeks later, in the most unexpected way. Zoe, my best friend, called me one morning with urgency in her voice. "You won't believe what I just heard. I'm at Bluestone Cafe with a client, and Vanessa is at a nearby table with some man in a suit. Lauren, she's talking about your house." I asked Zoe to explain further, my heart racing. "They're discussing some kind of proposal to buy half of your property. She's talking about offering a dignified way out for everyone." The man seems skeptical, saying something like, "Mitchell will never agree," and she responded, "They won't have a choice once I implement the next phase." That warning was a blessing in disguise. The next morning, Vanessa and Ryan showed up at our door with a folder of documents and determined expressions. "We have a proposal we'd like you to consider," Vanessa announced as we sat down in the living room. The plan they presented was bold. They wanted to buy half the property to create what Vanessa called the Mitchell family complex, essentially dividing the mansion to accommodate both couples. "The grounds are more than enough for 2 family units," she explained, unrolling detailed architectural plans she had prepared. "We can share common areas like the library and formal garden, but have separate private wings." Ryan seemed genuinely excited about the idea, believing it was a compromise that could bring the family together. It would be amazing for our kids to grow up together, like Michael and I did. I looked at those drawings, incredibly detailed and clearly worked on for weeks, not days, and realized this had been Vanessa's strategy from the start. When she couldn't get the whole house, she decided to try for half of it. "It's an interesting proposal," I replied carefully. "How much are you offering as payment for half the property?" Vanessa smiled, clearly prepared for that question. "We can make a down payment now and the rest over 5 years. We have some investments that are about to mature." "What kind of investments?" Michael asked, surprising everyone with his direct question. My husband usually avoided confrontations about money, especially with family. Ryan looked uncomfortable. "Well, we have some opportunities in development." "Ryan." Michael gently interrupted. "We know about your debts. We know you don't have the resources for a purchase of this size." Vanessa visibly paled. "This is a misunderstanding. Our financial situation—" "It's exactly what Thomas documented," I interjected, reaching for our own folder of documents. 3 maxed-out credit cards, 2 mortgages on your current home, which is now undervalued, personal loans with alarming interest rates. Ryan looked genuinely confused. "I don't understand. Vanessa told me we were just temporarily tight while some investments matured." It was a painful moment, watching the realization form on Ryan's face. the dawning understanding that his wife had lied not only to us, but to him as well. Vanessa quickly switched tactics. Clara would support this plan. She always wanted the family united. In fact, I mentioned it to her yesterday and she seemed quite receptive. That's interesting, I replied calmly, considering Clara has been in Florida visiting her sister since Monday. The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's lies were crumbling like a house of cards caught in a sudden gust of wind. What's your real plan, Vanessa? I asked directly. Because clearly it's not to buy half this property with money you don't have. Cornered, Vanessa finally revealed the truth, seemingly unable to keep up the act any longer. This house should have been ours, she snapped, dropping all pretense of cordiality. If we had secured the financing 2 months earlier, it would have been ours. Why should Michael have everything while Ryan can barely keep up appearances? It's not fair. And your plan was? I pressed. To get a legal stake in the property, she admitted, even if just a partial one at first. Once we were established here, it would be much easier to eventually take over the whole thing. Force us out, I translated. Make things so uncomfortable that we'd eventually sell our share to you. She didn't deny it. Ryan looked devastated. Vanessa, you told me this was a genuine proposal for family reconciliation, that it was about healing wounds and building a future together. And it is, she insisted, but the desperation in her voice betrayed the lie. Just, eventually on our terms. Michael, who had watched silently through most of the conversation, finally spoke. I think you need to leave now. Ryan, you'll always be my brother and will always have a place in our lives. But we can't allow this kind of behavior to continue. As Ryan led a furious Vanessa out the door, I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that we had avoided another trap, sadness for Ryan's evident pain, and a renewed determination to protect our family once and for all. That night, Michael and I made a decision. It was time to resolve this situation permanently. No more defensive reactions, no more waiting for the next ambush. We needed a definitive solution to end Vanessa's manipulations once and for all. We're going to put an end to this, I agreed as we worked out our final plan, in a way that protects our family, but also gives Ryan a chance to see clearly what's really happening. The strategy we devised was risky. It could drive Ryan away for good, or possibly save not only our peace, but maybe even his marriage in the long run, if Vanessa was willing to face her own demons. Either way, the battle for our home was about to reach its climax. Our plan came together quickly. Michael and I, along with Thomas Wright, developed a 3-pronged strategy that would address not only the immediate situation, but also protect our future. We need a solution that's final, not just another temporary band-aid, I explained, as we finalized the details. Something Vanessa can't manipulate or work around. Thomas, with the wisdom gained from decades practicing family law, agreed. The most effective approach will be multifaceted and transparent. The less room for misinterpretation, the better. The first step was to invite the entire Mitchell family, including Ryan and Vanessa, to a formal lunch at our home. The message was carefully worded, an important meeting regarding the future of the Mitchell family estate. This wording was deliberately chosen to ensure Vanessa's attendance. She would never miss anything involving the family estate. Behind the scenes, we worked tirelessly on preparations. We set up the irrevocable trust that would legally protect the house for our descendants. We compiled all relevant documentation about Vanessa's previous attempts. Most importantly, we crafted a comprehensive presentation that Clara specifically requested to lead. This affects the whole family, my mother-in-law insisted with surprising determination. And as matriarch, I have a particular responsibility. The day of the meeting arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures, an ironic contrast to the emotional storm that was about to break. We meticulously arranged the formal dining room, every detail carefully considered to create an atmosphere of dignity and seriousness. Vanessa and Ryan arrived right on time. She wore an elegant outfit that looked new, flawless makeup, and a smile that showed not the slightest hint of remorse for her recent manipulations. Ryan looked tense, avoiding direct eye contact with anyone. Michael led everyone to the table, where Thomas was already waiting with his usual formal posture. Clara sat at the head of the table, a deliberate choice symbolizing her family authority. After initial greetings, Clara opened the meeting with a surprisingly direct statement. We are here today to definitively resolve a situation that has caused significant pain in our family. Before anything else, I want everyone to know that my decisions are based on verifiable facts, not on feelings or personal preferences. Vanessa immediately straightened up, clearly not expecting that tone from Clara, who had traditionally avoided conflict. As you all know, Clara continued, I have been concerned about our family's harmony and everyone's well-being. Recently, I've reached some conclusions that need to be clearly expressed. Thomas handed out small folders to everyone present. Inside were organized copies of the evidence of Vanessa's actions over the past months, from the falsified emails in my name to her detailed plans to gradually take over the property. Vanessa, Clara said, locking eyes with her daughter-in-law, we have uncovered all your efforts to take control of this house. Not only your false accusations against Lauren, but also your attempts to manipulate me, Ryan, and the family's finances as a whole. Vanessa's face registered a flash of shock before quickly composing herself. Clara, clearly there's been some misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Clara interrupted firmly. I have here recordings of your own admissions to Ryan about your plans to consolidate the property once you gained a legal stake in it. That revelation stunned everyone. Ryan had recorded the post-confrontation conversation when Vanessa, still furious, had outlined her true intentions. This is an invasion of privacy, Vanessa protested, turning to her husband with an accusatory look. Ryan surprisingly stood his ground. It's documentation of the truth, Vanessa, something our family desperately needed. Thomas then spoke, succinctly explaining the legal aspects of the situation. To protect the family estate and ensure clarity for everyone involved, Michael and Lauren have established an irrevocable family trust for this property. He went on to explain in clear terms that the house was now legally protected for future generations, specifically for Michael and Lauren's direct descendants, with provisions allowing Clara to reside in the home indefinitely if she wished. In short, Thomas concluded, any future attempt to challenge the ownership would not only be futile, but could also result in serious legal consequences. Realizing that her options were rapidly disappearing, Vanessa shifted to a tactic that had worked for her in the past, playing the victim. I'm being attacked by the whole family, she declared, tears conveniently welling up in her eyes. All because I wanted to be part of something special, because I wanted Ryan to have the same as his brother. Clara, however, was prepared. Vanessa, I'd like to share one more piece of information I recently discovered. She pulled another document from the folder. This is a detailed report showing how you and Ryan have been using the money I've been regularly providing, supposedly for the consulting business. The report, prepared by a forensic accountant at Clara's request, clearly showed that less than 20% of the funds had actually been invested in the business. The rest had funded the luxurious lifestyle they were maintaining, including the designer bag Vanessa was wearing at that very moment. The financial manipulation is particularly disturbing, Clara continued, her voice steady despite the obvious sadness. Ryan is my son, and you are my daughter-in-law. I trusted you both implicitly. Ryan looked physically ill as the evidence was presented. Mom, I didn't know the full extent. Vanessa was managing our finances. Blaming your husband is even lower, Michael interrupted, finally breaking his silence. Ryan may have been naive, but you deliberately used him to access family resources, Vanessa. The tension in the room was palpable as Clara finally reached the conclusion of her statement. Based on all of this, I've made some decisions. First, the financial support I was providing for the consulting business will be suspended until a verifiable and transparent business plan is presented. Second, I'm offering to pay for therapy for both of you, individually and as a couple, if you choose to take that path. She turned to Vanessa. And most importantly, this house belongs to Michael and Lauren. It is not, and will never be, available to you in any way. That matter is completely closed. Vanessa stared at everyone for a long moment, clearly weighing her options. When she finally spoke, her voice took on a cold, sharp tone that revealed her true nature more clearly than any document ever could. You Mitchells have always thought you were better than everyone else, guarding your precious family legacy like you're some kind of royalty. You never really accepted me, always treating me like I should be grateful that Ryan chose me. She stood up abruptly. Come on, Ryan. We don't have to sit here and take this coordinated attack. It was at that crucial moment that Ryan made the bravest decision of his life. Remaining seated, he answered calmly. No, Vanessa, I'm not leaving. We need to face the truth of what we've done, what you convinced me to do. This obsession with status and material things is destroying our lives and our marriage. The determination in his face showed that something fundamental had shifted. It was no longer just about the house or money, but about integrity and truth. Vanessa, realizing her control over Ryan had shattered, cast one last furious glance at everyone before storming out, slamming the front door with theatrical force. The silence that followed was broken by Ryan, who looked both devastated and relieved. I'm sorry. For everything. I don't know how I let things get this far. Clara embraced her son, while Michael placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. Acknowledging the truth is the first step toward healing, Clara said gently. In the weeks that followed, our family began a slow process of rebuilding. Ryan started intensive therapy, finally recognizing the manipulative patterns he had allowed in his marriage. He and Vanessa separated with the future of their relationship uncertain. Clara, in turn, accepted our offer to turn the east wing of the house into an independent space for her. It would be wonderful to be close when the baby arrives, she said, her eyes shining with renewed excitement. Benjamin Thomas Mitchell was born on a spring night, bringing with him the pure joy that only a new life can offer. Holding that tiny being in my arms, with Michael by my side and Clara eager to meet her grandson, I felt a sense of both closure and a new beginning all at once. The months that followed were dedicated to creating new memories in our home, now truly ours. The baby's room, which Vanessa had tried so many times to take over with her advice, became a space filled with peace and love. The library she had coveted was transformed into a place for bedtime stories with Benjamin. The gardens she once planned to redesign flourished under our care and vision. At Benjamin's first birthday celebration, our house was filled with friends and family. Ryan came alone, still in the process of divorce, but visibly healthier and more centered. He and Michael had slowly rebuilt their brotherly relationship, now based on honesty and mutual respect. Vanessa, of course, was not invited. We heard from mutual acquaintances that she had eventually moved to another city and was apparently already involved with a successful local businessman. Some people never truly change. One quiet evening after the party, as Michael and I relaxed on the porch, watching the sunset over the gardens, I reflected on the extraordinary journey we had been through. When Vanessa said I didn't deserve all this luxury, I remarked, she really didn't understand what makes this house special. Michael nodded, holding my hand. She only saw the material value, the square footage, the address. She never understood that real luxury lies in the home we've built within these walls. I looked at our house, not a display of status or a symbol of success, but a sanctuary of memories, values, and family love. A place where our son would grow up, knowing he's loved not for what he owns, but for who he is. Real luxury, I agreed, is having a home where you completely belong. And that's something Vanessa, with all her obsession over status and possessions, could never grasp. As the stars began to appear in the twilight sky, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not just for the house we had protected, but for the family we had strengthened through adversity. The battle had been painful, but the outcome, a home truly ours, safeguarded for future generations, was worth every difficult moment.